Hey everybody, it's Magic Prepper, and this video is brought to you by Midway USA, who's the biggest supporter of the channel, and of course they have everything you need when it comes to stuff like what we're going to talk about today. But this is a video where I'm going to be asking for your help, because I'm just at a little bit of a crossroads here, and I'm just not sure what avenue to take, and I thought that maybe you would give me some advice. So, a while back, I took a poll on what route I should take when trying to build out an SPR, or a special purpose rifle, which is generally going to be a 5.56 rifle in the AR-15 platform that's more tuned towards longer range engagement. Okay, so in that poll, people voted for the more budget-friendly option, saying, hey, you know, especially with the economy right now and the way things are, it would probably be more helpful for people to see what you could do on a budget while still getting something good enough to get the job done. So I said, okay, if that's what everyone thinks we should do, then let's make it happen, right? And so I went and I chose all the components and everything else related to what you would want for an SPR, including the rifle itself. And this is the Ruger MPR AR-556. It is an 18-inch barreled AR-15 with a cold hammer forged barrel, and it's got a 2-stage match trigger in it. And I believe it was $850. So I thought that was a pretty good price point for a lot of the features that this brings. It has Magpul furniture, it has a muzzle brake, it has a lot of things that you don't usually get on a more budget-friendly rifle, and then it has the 18-inch barrel, which is what I was looking for when it came to an SPR. So for something more budget-friendly, I thought it might be a good candidate, and then Ruger has a decent reputation of being a quality manufacturer. But there was a problem. And this isn't the first time I've ran into a problem when trying to build out a budget-friendly SPR. I originally started with a 20-inch Aero Precision build, and when I say that, I mean it was a complete upper on a complete lower, so nothing crazy, right? But either way, this is a complete rifle. And that Aero Precision didn't work out. It was having a lot of issues, it was undergassed, it required a lot of tuning, a lot of niche products in order to make it work properly, and customer service wasn't the standard I would expect, so that just is gone. That was a failed project, right? So I thought by going with this Ruger, we'd maybe get a little bit further. And I just don't know what to do here. I am honestly trying to bring budget-friendly options like this to the forefront to give everybody something to consider when it comes to building out a defensive firearm for their own preparedness purposes. I'm willing to do that, right? I don't have to buy an $850 AR-15. I have other AR-15s that are already of higher quality than this. But I'm trying to do this to kind of see what I can put together for myself, as well as demonstrate what's available out there based on different price points. This has already gone to the factory and come back to me. When I first got this, something that immediately just kind of stood out to me was the fact that the trigger pin was basically falling out of the lower receiver. It was protruding quite a bit. And that's what I'm saying, like as soon as I opened it out of the box. So I said, okay, take a look at it and just see where we go from there. Trigger pin was extremely loose. You could push it out halfway out with just finger pressure, really. And then all it took was a little bit more pressure with a pin or something like that to just get it all the way pulled out. Like it didn't take any pressure at all. So I took the fire control group out. I fully reinstalled it, which is not my first time doing that, right? And same results. So I called Ruger. They sent me a shipping label, no problem. Made sure I had everything I needed, said they'll take care of it. You got it, right? Cool. There's some other issues with the gun too, which we'll get to here in a second, but I wasn't as concerned with those. I just wanted to make sure the lower was in spec, because basically my thought process was this trigger pin hole is out of spec and these trigger pins are going to be walking out, and that's just not the standard that I want to accept at this point in time with a brand new rifle that's, you know, still $850, right? So I get it back, and now the trigger pin is a little bit tighter in there. I will say that it seems to fit a little bit better. They said that they reinstalled the hammer spring. I don't think that was the original issue, because I also reinstalled the hammer spring, and no, I didn't do it backwards, Steve, or anybody else. But it does seem a little bit tighter now. So I don't know if maybe they actually threw in a slightly oversized trigger pin in order to make up for the out-of-spec lower receiver, which is basically the problem here, okay? And even now, after returning from the factory, you can see here in some footage I'll put up for you that the trigger pin moves back and forth inside of that trigger pin hole with much more motion than it should be able to have. And then that also made me realize that the other things going on with this rifle weren't satisfactory either. There's scratches on the barrel that came that way right from the factory. I mean, I didn't do it. I didn't specifically stick something inside of the handguard to create those scratches, right? They were there from the factory. Brand new rifle, barrel's all scratched up. And there's finishing drips on the end of the barrel as well, where the finish is just dripping down the barrel and then was just left that way. And even though it went back to the factory because of having an issue, I mean, literally that trigger pin was just gonna fall out of the gun at some point. That's how loose it was. And it still could possibly, I can still move it with just the pressure of my finger. It's tighter than it was before. Like I said, I don't know exactly what they did. I don't think reinstalling the hammer spring actually fixed it, but it's still loose enough to move, and you can see just how much wiggle room it has inside of that trigger pin housing. So now these other cosmetic defects are even less acceptable to me, right? Like this is something that I would expect from like a blemished model. And I guess I'm a little upset now because they had the opportunity to bring it back to the factory, and I assume they would have looked the gun over completely rather than just only paying attention to the trigger pin issue that I had personally brought up. And you would think that through that process, they would say, yeah, that barrel actually doesn't look too good. It's all scratched up, finish is dripping down the front. Maybe we should just get a different one on here while we're at it, since, you know, it's already being sent back for warranty work. But that's not what happened. So instead, oh, and I have a weird spot here on my castle nut too, which I guess I don't really care about, but I didn't even notice it until right now while the sun is shining on it. So not sure what that's from either, because I've maybe shot 20 rounds through this rifle when I first got it, just to kind of try it out, see, you know, if it actually still functioned, even though it had that trigger pin issue. And it did, and it shoots. So I guess what I'm asking for you all to tell me here, and this is just because I'm just curious as to see like how you all would approach this as well, because this is going to be an experience somebody here in our community might be having if I suggest like a budget tier rifle like this one, and this is what they receive, and even after they send it back in for warranty work, they get it back and the problems aren't necessarily resolved, right? Because to me, the best way to resolve this would have been a new lower receiver that's actually in spec. But is this a standard that we're accepting when we're spending $850? Would you accept this standard when you spend $500? Like you saw in the video footage with the trigger pin moving back and forth in the trigger pin hole, that AR Stoner lower parts kit that included the fire control group is what I used inside that Aero Precision lower, and it doesn't do that, right? So if this isn't the standard, which I don't think it should be, in all honesty, I don't think you should settle for this on something that's brand new that you already sent back to the factory. Then what do we do right here, okay? So I guess what I'm asking is, how do you handle this? Do you send this back to the factory once again? Do you call Ruger and say, hey, this still just isn't what it should be and I need it taken care of? Do you, I mean, it's already had its repair work done and it technically functions. I mean, Ruger said they shot it 20 times without a malfunction. So do you just sell it and hope whoever picks it up next doesn't experience any issues in the future, right? I'm not personally really comfortable with that, knowing what I know, but like, is that the route you take? Especially if Ruger is not willing to maybe go the next step, right? And by the way, when I do warranty work and stuff like that, or I have to access customer service for these companies, I don't tell them who I am. Like, I don't say, oh, this is Magic Prepper and I have that YouTube channel and like there's something wrong with your gun, you know? Like, no, I approach them as myself, as just a regular person who purchased their product, because I want to also see how that customer service would work for anybody else out there, right? I don't want special treatment. I want to see exactly how the manufacturer is going to take care of people. And maybe this is the expectation, right? So what do you do? Are you just going to run it anyway? Is that kind of how you would approach it? Saying, hey, like, if it shoots, right? Because I just don't think that's a standard you should just accept just because the gun shoots when you pull the trigger, right? Like, if we're spending our money, even though it's budget friendly, the lower should still be in spec, right? I mean, would you just throw in some anti-walk pins? I don't know. And especially with the barrel blemishing going on too, like that's just fine to you as well? And I'm seriously asking you, I really am, because I'm just not sure how I want to move forward with this particular firearm at this point in time. I can go through the process once again with Ruger, right? But what a lot of people don't realize is I live in the middle of nowhere. And the only place I can actually ship this from is like an hour from my house. So it's still work for me. It still costs me gas. It still takes my time. It still requires energy that shouldn't have to be spent on something that should have just been correct the first time around, right? Another option, and this is something else that I want everyone to kind of consider, is do I look for a better quality rifle for this project? Would you look for something more, maybe still in the similar ballpark, but like, for example, IWI, they have an SPR version of the Zion with an 18-inch barrel. Do you go that route? Do you get a M400 tread, even though they don't have an 18-inch barrel? Do you get something even less expensive, but that's just going to be better off than this? I know a lot of people are going to tell me immediately to get PSA, right? I understand that. I'm not opposed to Palmetto State Armory by any means, but all I'm trying to say is Ruger should be of a certain quality when it comes to their manufacturing capacity, and at $850, this rifle should be of decent quality. And I'm trying here, man. I really am when it comes to these budget-friendly rifles. I'm not just making this stuff up. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do here. You know, I really am trying, I promise. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How would you handle this situation? Is this up to your standards? How would you resolve this scenario before going through and investing in optics and accessories and ammo and everything else that you're going to need to get this fully set up? And I'm genuinely curious, because I need to know how to move forward here when it comes to approaching a more budget-friendly mindset with some of these firearms. So we just had our other fiascos I went through, including that original Aero Precision build with the 20-inch, right? And it's like I just can't catch a break. And to me, that would mean it's not just me. And if it's not just me, then let's help each other out by pointing people in the right direction. And I understand that there's going to be people out there that have a Ruger MPR AR-556 that's 100% perfect. That doesn't have anything out of spec, that doesn't have barrel blemishes, that doesn't have any other issues at all, and it's been a really good rifle for them. And the same thing will be said about all the other brands. Palmetto State Armory, Aero Precision. They'll say it about everything else. I get that. I understand that. But we're talking about a numbers game here, and the ratio, and how many of these out of 100 are going to be this versus how many of something else out of 100 are going to be perfect, right? Like that's the game we're playing, and I'm losing lately. So give me your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. I'm not trying to drag Ruger through the mud. I gave them an opportunity to make things right, and I just don't feel like anything was really done, to be completely honest with you. And I feel like I got a Blem rifle for the price of a brand new one. So here we are.